This week on Around the Coin, Brian Roemmele, Faisal Khan, and Mike Townsend discuss Oracle's acquisition of Micros for $5 billion, a review of the Amazon Fire Phone, and how cryptocurrencies are affecting marketplace startups.
Good morning, guys. Brian, Faisal, it is 9:30 on a Saturday. We are here with Around the Coin. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Good morning to you.
I have to say one thing today. Yo.
Yo.
No. Yo.
Yo.
Yeah. Did you download it?
You have to. Yeah.
Yo.
You have to. Not even a choice.
Oh my God. Are we not embarrassed to be in the technology community today? I mean, what the heck?
Brian, we're proud.
$1 million, huh?
Hey, more. I can tell you right now, you can triple that. There are people that are running after this crazily, saying that this is the new Twitter.
This is like the old commercial from the early '90s or late '90s where I used to go Bud.
Yeah.
Remember? The Budweiser.
I'm sorry. I maybe I'm just disconnected from reality. I just don't get it, guys. Maybe you might have some insight on it, but okay, good.
It's catchy.
Consensus.
It's catchy.
Mike's the young one. He would know.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely downloaded it, tried it, and then it's going to get put on the third or fourth screen on the iPhone and then probably dissolve.
Cobwebs.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on Warped Tour. I'm going to see how the 14 to 16-year-olds adapt to it, but I'm pretty certain that it's not going to take hold, other than maybe Silicon Valley elite.
Another side, I downloaded the Facebook Slingshot app, which is the Snapchat clone, and I would say typical Facebook, extremely well crafted UI.
Yeah, really?
The implementation of it, yeah, it's beautiful. But boy, it's just like I'm not sure this fits in my life at all to any capacity.
Is it native to the Messenger or is it separate?
Separate, completely separate app.
Well, are you a Snapchat user?
Had been trailing off, but definitely early adopter. Got on there, definitely over 100 Snapchats in my day total.
I will make observations during Warped Tour to see how well this takes over. Snapchat was literally controlling the tour last year, and Instagram. I would say that Instagram and Snapchat are the social networks of the youth right now. They do not Twitter. They care not. They're pretty much off Facebook for most of interactions because their parents are on there. But Instagram is the way a lot.
Instagram is not just youth; it's everyone. I mean, everyone uses Instagram.
And Twitter. I would say Twitter is big for everyone because it's just public communication.
Well, you know what they say about Twitter?
Using it. They don't understand the reason for it.
No, they do. You know what they say about Twitter? Just thank God my family hasn't discovered it yet,
Yeah. Being public. Yeah. So we have a few big news as of late. The Micros Oracle deal is huge. Amazon Fire released a phone. And then maybe towards the end we could sprinkle a little Bitcoin on top. But boy, the acquisition of Micros by Oracle is just a huge deal for the payments world.
Not seen coming by most of the people who have been observing this market.
Have you guys heard of this before the news broke? It was so quiet.
I actually heard that Micros was in play to be acquired by a number of players. Strangely enough, PayPal was one of the companies listed as a potential acquisition or merger. Would actually I think would be from that standpoint. Micros and NCR essentially control through Radiant Systems, pretty much control the POS system on the midline to highline level. And if you go from Starbucks to Holiday Inn chain or anything, it's a Micros system. And they are just as much a hardware play as a support play, as a software play. As Moore's Law has its way with things, hardware becomes less relevant and less important. Software becomes much more relevant. And the Symphony software that Micros has created. Now, although it's not a work of art from us, sort of elite programmers and startup people, we look at it and say, my gosh, but you have to understand that 98% of the retail world is touching those types of systems. And if you were to remove those systems and replace it with something else, they would get immensely agitated. So they've come to love it, whether we love the UI or not. They've come to love it because it's a business tool for them.
Right. It's an enterprise tool to the definition.
Is. But now when you take Micros, which is essentially just one little, branch of a tree, and put it to the root of a trunk that is Oracle, and you have this tremendous merging of capabilities. It is mind blowing, and a lot of technology writers, Oracle's not making as much money, so they're just going to buy Micros and sort of appendage it on there. Those that really understand payments and POS systems know that is not what's going on.
What's the long-term play? What is Oracle crafting here?
Long-term play is POS is moving into the cloud. I mean, Oracle was one of the very first cloud companies, if you will. What a lot of people don't understand is Micros already uses Oracle. 65% of what Micros does is within the Oracle database structure. So we're looking at something that is a cost savings, by the way. I mean, these two companies merging, Micros wholesale costs now. I'm going to have to cut here because I got somebody going crazy.
Sure. Sure, take a minute.
I think my landscaper guy.
It's not too bad.
I don't know. I just want to make sure that we don't.
As long as he doesn't.
Anyway, so
go ahead.
Let's see where I want to jump in.
So, Brian, I would say, that's not particularly exciting, right? Because Oracle could acquire any large enterprise company and make that argument, right? It has to be what they're going to do, what they're going to do with the data.
Guys, give it a pause, and then ask a question or resume your train of thought.
All right, we're back. So, Brian, I think it's not particularly as interesting that Oracle is just buying a large enterprise company, but what they're going to do with the data, right? This has been a startup's dream, as you said before the show, to have all the data of all the merchants.
I don't think there was a startup founder that I've talked to or executive that I've talked to that hasn't dreamed about creating, quote unquote, the big data solution. In fact, right as we speak, there's founders giving pitches to somebody within the VC community saying that their play is big data. And when this deal was announced, I had some people that work within the industries of a lot of these startups and legacy companies contact me and said, I'm pretty bummed out today because if they are even 20% successful, startups, I got calls, I got text messages, I got emails. As soon as this announcement had come out as a rumor, that they were pretty much bummed out because they know that if they're 20, 30% successful at doing this, that they're going to have a material impact upon any startup's dream to try to sort of insert themselves into the ecosystem and then somehow represent the data back to the merchant. Oracle's movement into this sector means that at the very high end, they're definitely going to dominate. In the mid end, they're going to dominate. And I happen to know strategically what's going on in Micros right now. They are going all the way down to the micro merchants. Micros, I can tell you, and I do not have any non-disclosure on this, Micros is going to produce a tablet-based system, which is going to be very, very powerful. And if I was in that sector, I would be very worried about it. This is for the small cafe. It's for the small retailer. And if the Oracle relationship comes with it, you're going to see a horsepower being brought down to the smaller merchant that was heretofore unavailable at a cost basis that nobody could compete with. I mean, Oracle at this point has so much power that they can deliver.
What are your views on Micros going into the cloud, the POS going into the cloud, and then Oracle leveraging its business intelligence?
I think, to me, Faisal, after building a point-of-sale system, I could say that the most valuable asset that a lot of point-of-sale systems don't quite utilize in smaller scale is the distribution channels through resellers. Yeah. Micros has an amazing reseller network set up. So do a few other large, and one of my favorites is Lightspeed, has a great reseller channel. But I think a lot of smaller guys, and I'm not sure if Square sets up resellers, probably not.
There's no reseller at
resellers,
Square.
yeah.
And there never will be. They're anti-salesperson. Harbor Touch is doing incredibly well in that space also. And I'm not saying that they're going to eliminate all of these competitors. All I'm saying is the ones that thought that they were going to have massive scale, the ones that were lethargic and didn't build a reseller channel like Square, like PayPal, they're going to face an enormous problem because support, once you put a system like this, the heart of a business, and you don't have local human beings that can show up and say, let me tweak the screwdriver.
And anything up the chain.
You're out of the market.
Anything up the chain. If the small mom and pop shops, I would say price matters, but really they want something that just works. They want something that, I would say it's a combination of price not quite weighing as much. When you get to enterprise companies and you're purchasing 1,000 of these at a time, that's when I think Micros just has enormous value. You just can't have it. You can't have any downtime. If you have downtime in a coffee shop, it's not the end of the world. If you have downtime in Target or Walmart, that's unacceptable.
Even for the small merchant, one of the reasons why this philosophy I talk about, which is called practical and pragmatic philosophy that small merchants and basically all merchants have, is the reason why they don't adopt technology that you and I might invent and might be brilliant is because they know that the fallback technology has always worked. And you have to give a really big proposition to move into this new type of technology. I was out in LA this weekend and, actually Friday night, and I did a survey of about 45 small merchants down a fairly hip street, and 95% of them were using either Casio or Royal Cash registers.
What was this hip street?
Take a guess. What do you think is the hippest?
I would say if you were on the west side, maybe Abbott Kinney.
There you go.
Kinney.
Good guess. And all right, so you're looking at the shops and you're figuring, wow, these are the trendiest shops. I'm going to see an iPad, POS stand, the counter is going to be bare, nothing but the iPad sitting there, not to be found. And I asked a lot of shopkeepers, I'm like, why aren't you using the latest and greatest? Oh, we had that. It was out after 3 weeks. And, the frustration is, there's a lot to be said there. There's a lot of value that they're looking at. They really love the idea. The preponderance of response was not ready for prime time. It crashed a couple of times and I just got sick of it. And, the register is retro. One actually had an antique cash register using a mechanical device.
They're so freaking old school over there, though. They do all those little shops are just hobby shops.
Yeah,
they're not even trying to grow them. So they want the old register. They want the
very Etsy. It doesn't have that real Etsy feel going on there. It's like Etsy on the real world. Yeah. But so Micros, the power in what Faisal is saying, I think is, and Mike, you've experienced it, is once you start getting the things that an Oracle can bring to the equation. And again, it's not like I'm in love with Oracle. I think there's a whole lot of lack of creativity in certain elements of their business. But I think the mixture of these two companies is quite intoxicating. And if done correctly, we're going to see some of the things that most of us have been dreaming about with payments. I got to tell you, there's a big Apple connection about this, and many people are missing this. Steve Jobs' best friend was Larry Ellison, by both parties' admission. Steve would admit that, and Larry would admit it. Larry Ellison is always been interested in payments. So is Steve. My first interaction with Steve Jobs was about payments. And these two individuals, I think, recognize that you are not going to get, Starbucks to replace their Micros Symphony-based system and put an iPad there, no matter how sexy it looks. And so what's going to happen? If Apple's going to create a payment system, which they are, and they're going to use, a combination of BLE, NFC, and the cloud, how are you going to make this happen? Well, you need back-end integration. Wouldn't it be brilliant for, Larry Ellison to kind of know this in advance and say, the future of POS is back-end cloud integration. That's where Apple's going to go. And if we build the tools to make Micros work with everybody's new payment system, we're going to be the gatekeeper. And that's, in fact, what's going to happen. So, again, this is not a foregone conclusion. I think the talks are very far along. But there's always a chance that something might happen. I can't imagine anybody else moving as quickly as Oracle. IBM is probably feeling really sad because they sold most of their POS system at the worst possible time. NCR is become incredibly more valuable with Radiant Systems. They would have been seen to have gotten a bargain over the acquisitions that they've had over the years. And
this will be huge too. At $5 billion, this is the largest acquisition that Oracle has made since.
Has ever made?
They've made some larger ones. Sun Microsystems was larger.
Sun, I think it was 3. Wasn't Sun 3 billion?
Sun was 7.
7.
BEA was 8.
Okay.
Siebel was 5. PeopleSoft was 10. That was, I believe, their largest. So it's definitely up there. I mean, for a company who makes a lot of acquisitions, about 6 to 10 a year, this is huge for them. Yeah,
and like I said, if the Apple proposition goes away, I think it's going to go, and Apple has all this back-end integration with the iWallet, we're going to be seeing an incredible.
So what's a potential extreme scenario where we look at it and say, boy, we really didn't see that coming? Something that even is on the fringe now, that maybe from a user experience standpoint or even a back-end enterprise standpoint, just.
It's hard to surprise you guys now because we've had so many discussions about the iWallet. I think for the average person, when they recognize that they'll be able to take their phone into anybody that has a micro system as their POS and be able to pay for goods and services just by putting their fingerprint over the sensor, that's going to be a big wow event. And people are going to be like, how did that happen so quickly? Well, we can remember back to right now that Larry Ellison had the foresight to recognize that bulldozing everything. See, the startup disruption Kool-Aid is we don't need any existing infrastructure. We're disruptors. We're going to bulldoze everything over and reinvent. I've told every one of these startups, every single one of them that would listen, do not work with existing infrastructure. You'll own the world. Not very many really wanted to buy into that. Most of the VCs would come back. I would straighten their heads out. And then the VCs would come back and say, oh, no, we want disruption. We want you to drink the disruption Kool-Aid. And finally today, even Clayton Christensen has come out and said, please, people in the Valley, stop using the word disruption. Do it today. You guys are not disruptors. So what's going to be surprising is these massive POS system infrastructures are going to be modernized through the back end and the cloud in a way that most of us did not predict. And I saw it coming. And now you're going to have this magical experience that every startup founder in the payments industry wanted, where you just kind of walk in and you pick up your goods. You've already ordered it. We're talking about ordering systems and order ahead. Wait until you see what Oracle has, in play with Micros and knowing the APIs that Apple's going to make with ordering ahead. Apple has a massive patent portfolio with all sorts of elements to this, and just the order ahead patent is quite massive.
Yeah,
so these amazing. Are the things that we're going to be seeing. So it's going to be incredible times.
Huge
this
news.
Is a big point.
$5 billion. Faisal, what do you think about this new Amazon phone? It looks like it's going to be, if Amazon is known for anything, they're known for large, massive, successful endeavors. Where do you see this phone in a couple years?
Would you buy it?
Would you buy it?
I would. I'm intrigued, and that's probably one of the reasons I would buy it. I'm really intrigued as to how it ties in. Most probably will tie in with the entire Amazon ecosystem. So payments would be something that would be natively riding on the phone somewhere, if not immediately. I haven't had a chance to, check it out in that much detail, but it's something that I would, and it very rarely happens that I would, go for a phone like this. But this one intrigued me for some reason. The seamless integration with Amazon is something that really sort of kept me going, and being able to buy Kindle stuff or whatever it is, and the interface seems to be pretty nice, but it's still a little bit too early. But I'll buy it nonetheless.
Version 2? Are you a version 2 guy?
I am.
Wait till I get that beta out of the way.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, I got to touch one of these phones, and
Have they released it, or is this a special Brian privilege?
It was a privilege. I was very fortunate, and I really thank you.
Thank you, Jeff Bezos.
My friends out there. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah. But let me tell you, here's what got me excited. Well, I'm an Apple guy. The tattoos are all Apple on me, right? But at the end of the day, I was blown away, not so much by the parallax simulation on the screen. That is kind of cool, but it's not the reason to get me going. Firefly and the SDK behind Firefly technology, I think, is going to be quite amazing, and I think it's so overlooked.
So explain this a little bit. Explain for people who don't know.
You're using this 3-dimensional camera, and the 3-dimension is not so that I can sound mystical. 3-dimension allows us to tell whether or not we're looking at a box or a flat object. So Amazon has taken some very advanced technology that allows us to image something and decide what it is. Is that a human face? Oh, yes. Here are the eyes. And there are different things we can do with that. Now, what is Firefly? Well, it's almost anything you want it to be, but it is definitely something for showrooming. And what is showrooming? Well, that's going out to your favorite retailer, taking a picture of it and getting it on Amazon, much to the consternation of retailers. Not so much small retailers, by the way. 98% of showrooming, and this is a valid statistic, 2 studies, take place in larger retailers. So it is really an anti-Walmart, maybe anti-Target type of thing if you look at it statistically. So I can aim it at a box, the Amazon Fire Phone, and it will have a high degree of accuracy. I forget the exact number of items that it has in its database. It's growing, but it's in hundreds and hundreds of millions. And it will be able to tell me exactly what it is and exactly how quickly I can get it and inexpensively through Amazon. And in some cases, in the future, how I can buy it from another small retailer in the same town that is Amazon affiliated. This is a transactional phone from that regard. The other thing it does is I can point it at artwork. I can point it at a TV show.
Mm-hmm. That was their example in the video.
Yes, and I can image and know what things are. I can point it at major buildings in cities, minor buildings in cities. I can point it at signs that have phone numbers. I can dial the phone. I can point it at items that have any sort of transactional information. And again, this is not quite in a public domain yet, but anything that has transactional information, the algorithm is smart enough to notice the dollar sign, notice an amount, try to ascertain what is being sold, and try to give me better intelligence about it. It's not always just about, can I get it at the Amazon store? It could be just about informing me. I can go to a museum. And
what's interesting about it is that Amazon has built it right into the phone, whereas in Apple, these things are possible, but they're spread across different applications. So Shazam for music. I believe Hulu, it's Hulu who has Shazam has released it for TV. There's WordLens if you want to look at translating words on the spot. But all of these are sort of fragmented experiences that people aren't going to know about when they buy the phone. So I think from Amazon's perspective, and of course at the end of the day, everything is potentially consumed, right? So if you hear something or you see something or whatever it may be, you can buy it on your phone through Amazon. And I think that's the end game there.
But is it going to happen? That's what I'm wondering. All these gizmos and all this technology, it's really cool. Are people really going to be pointing this phone here and there and saying, okay, give me information on this thing?
Well, yes and no. Amazon has a powerful user base. And let's look at the decisioning that takes place in a store. It is a choice between an Android phone or an iPhone. This is the binary choice, right? And until something else changes, it's not going to be much different. Now, if you go into the AT&T store and you're going to be convinced not to buy an Apple product, and unfortunately for Apple, that's going to be about 60 to 70%, maybe even higher outside the U.S., somebody's going to guide them into the Amazon phone. And if they're already an Amazon Prime member, or wanted to be an Amazon Prime member, you're going to get a free year of Amazon Prime. They're going to get 1,000 Amazon coins, which is quite a lot of coin. And we'll digress into Amazon coin as a payment system too. Yeah, but so it's going to be a no-brainer because you and I have a better affiliation with Amazon as human beings than we do with Samsung. Amazon is a more personable experience because all of us have developed relationships with the company. We haven't really developed, even if we own a Samsung phone, we haven't developed that relationship. This is important from a psychological standpoint, and it's a brilliant move on Amazon's part. So even if they had just a generic Amazon phone, it would just do fairly well on its own with the incredible feature set and then the sort of wow factor. Psychologically, when we show off our phones to our friends, the Amazon Fire Phone show-off piece is going to be the Parallax 3D simulation, and sure. that's gonna wow people. It's not going to sell the phone, but it's going to give the person that owns the phone a little bit more, maybe let's call it self-esteem.
Sure,
unfortunately,
something different. It's going to be well. If you're going to choose between, if you're going anything other than Android and iPhone, you want that wow. You need that wow factor. If you're looking at the Windows Phone, right, or you're looking at which is a beautiful phone.
It's beautiful,
but I'd say
heartbreaking. In another world, it would have been great, right?
They weren't able to. I think.
And the wow factor on the Windows Phone was the 40 megapixel camera, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. But speaking of camera, this is mind-blowing what they did. You do not have to ever pay for storage for your photos on an Amazon Fire Phone with the fairly decent camera. I got to tell you, I'm usually very nonplussed by cameras on smartphones, but Amazon did a whole lot of technology on this. It's not as great as it could be, and I think versions that come out will even get greater. But let me tell you, when you have kids and you have to be taking a whole lot of pictures, picture management is a problem. Now, here, what does Apple do? Apple says you got 1,000 pictures cached somewhere, and I got to remember. My wife will prod me. Have you synced, the phone and the caching? And I'm a technologist. I still don't quite get whether I'm synced or not. I pull up my iPhoto and I look at it and I go, okay, Apple, tell me if I've really synced those 1,000.
I think Steve Jobs is brilliant, but he should have plowed right through Dropbox and bought them because they've never nailed syncing. I'm not even sure iCloud officially works completely. I'm sure it does by now, but early days.
Dropbox automatically goes to my Google and my camera uploads.
Here's the way it should be. If I buy a 32 meg phone, I should automatically minimally get 32 meg backup from whoever I'm buying the phone from in the cloud.
You should get everything. You should get infinite. There is no 32. It should come with infinite.
You know what I'm saying?
And not 32 megs. Gigs.
Oh, gig. What I'm saying, gig. Yeah. All right. I'm going back.
Tera gigs.
Tera gigs. No, but what Jeff has done is he's leveraged Amazon's own computing and storage power. I mean, let's talk about Amazon AWS, right? Nobody has
which is something that we keep skipping because we have to understand that almost every conceivable startup out there is probably using Amazon right now.
Absolutely. We're probably on
Oracle, and they don't realize it.
Yeah. Amazon has dominated in ways that, the average person couldn't conceive and most technologists can. But by giving the free storage, you got to understand for middle America who's trying to manage your photos, how do you do this? How many CD-ROMs do you burn? I mean, I have some relatives
another feature
that are burning
they released.
CD-ROMs.
Oh, boy.
What's that?
I said, oh, boy, to that. Another feature they released, which is quite questionable in my book, is this Mayday feature. So if you have any,
beautiful.
We'll see.
It is beautiful. No. I know where you're going on this, but let's look at it as the Genius Bar.
What Mayday
the Genius Bar
right?
built into your phone.
The Genius Bar built in.
It is your Genius Bar built into the phone. I've been testing Mayday for a while on other Amazon products. And Mechanical Turks, I don't know what's going on the other side, but I've asked every possible random question. Now, I'm a guy that grew up, just going after librarians. I mean, if you were a librarian, I would call you. I mean, the New York Public Library, Princeton, Firestone Library. As a young guy, all I would do is call up and get research. And a lot of people don't recognize that these librarians live to do this type of stuff. But I was asking random questions like what I would do with Siri. It's like a live person being Siri is really what it is. And, again, it's us as technologists, we're not as wowed by this. But middle America, the ones that are using, All-Star or Cadillac's OnStar. Cadillac's OnStar. Everybody's like, what's the whole thing with OnStar? OnStar is probably a massive selling feature, one of the largest selling features for GM cars still, especially in the Cadillac range. There are people.
There you go. That's a good analogy for it.
Yes. Yeah. This is an OnStar for the phone. And Amazon understands middle America better than you or I because they deal with them on a daily basis. Look at Amazon's front page. And I will challenge you.
It is the most, yeah, it is.
I will challenge you to find any designer in a startup to look at Amazon's front page and not get ill.
I know.
That page is scientifically designed. Every element on that page is placed in 1999 style.
That's what you like to believe, but I'm not quite sure that's the case.
Well, I could tell you this. I know some of the technologists that are behind it, and every one of the links that appear on that page is algorithmically generated based upon not only your prior purchases, but the way certain trends are starting to move forward. And that is their front. That's their front desk. This is where they make all their sales.
So, Faisal, what do you think about the phone being preloaded with coin, with Amazon coin? How does that affect? Does that educate people as to cryptocurrencies? Does that educate the middle America as to there can be another form of currency, and then they introduce Bitcoin and other forms as well?
I'm on the fence on this one. I'm not really sure. A phone comes with so many apps. Sometimes, you ask people after a year down the road, have you clicked on that app? No, I don't know what it does.
Yeah, right.
And they'll say that. So the same thing with the coin analogy. It's like, I don't know, it's credit to something. I don't know. I haven't.
Will there be any advantage to out of the United States? I'm not sure. Is the phone available?
Only U.S. at this point.
Only U.S.
Yeah. I wonder will this be their sort of subtle bridge to having a international form of currency that's easy to use rather than...
very hard to say. I mean, so the phone is being sold in the U.S. How many people in the U.S. are actually going to be transacting overseas? That number by itself is so small. Even if you were to send something like 10 million phones, I'd say maybe no more than 10 or 15,000 people would probably be doing cross-border with it. So, and then you have to say, well, how many are going to be using the built-in coin feature? So, the number drops even more drastically. I don't know. Like I said, I'm on the fence on this one. I don't understand the rationale, right away, but I'm sure they must have something, in their mind.
Yeah, I wonder if there's anything particularly special about it that gets attracted by.
You can use a coin to buy apps and any other goods on the Amazon store, and books, obviously. And, I think it's a massive play to get Amazon coin into the mindset of the Fire Phone users. And Amazon's has had massive hiring. In fact, I published on Quora a Amazon employment description, which essentially was, if you're into Bitcoin, mining Bitcoin, programming, come apply for a job over at Amazon. So this is something big. Over time, I believe that you'll see a lot more transactional aspects of the Fire Phone. And you'll start seeing the reason why Amazon's showrooming feature is going to be a way to displace Walmart shoppers into local retailers. And these are retailers that have aligned themselves with Amazon. Remember, as we stand today, 70% of transactions on Amazon's site are from independent merchants. Keep that in your mind. Amazon does not sell most of the things on their own site. They are sold by mom and pops who are either inventorying it over to Amazon or literally shipping it out themselves. I think more than 90% are, let's put it this way, 90% of those transactions are usually warehoused, inventoried, and fulfilled by Amazon. And there's a good reason for that, Amazon Prime.
It's actually interesting, Brian, that you mentioned that the fact that Amazon acquired GoPago and will have, I'm sure, seamless integration with the phone, gives a little foreboding to the fact that maybe they are considering distribution of a larger point of sale play and having the payment system from the phone easily integrate with GoPago, so you can pay in your phone, not only pay in your phone, maybe pay in person through GoPago, walk in the store, collect what you want, walk out just using your Amazon phone. It feels a little bit claustrophobic in that they would limit to only the Amazon phone, but maybe there's a bigger play there from
It'll be open to other phones. And Amazon's biggest problem is, after getting people on their site, they're the number one destination site on the internet for shopping, period. There's nothing that even comes close. The next site is 50% of the volume that Amazon gets. So Amazon has that part pretty much covered, and they can continue to maintain it. The next problem is logistics. You have to get the product into the hand of the individual. And if Amazon can get local retailers to carry items or to inventory the items into the Amazon cloud, and then as they're showrooming at let's say Walmart, and they take a picture of something, Amazon can say, "Oh, that's around the corner at Bill's shoe store. Come on in and buy it right now. In fact, we can buy it for you and have it ready."
No, I can deliver it. I can deliver that to you via my drones.
Yeah, the Amazon drone dropping it.
And I think they have a very good service that's starting right now in some of the East Coast towns or West Coast towns, I guess. Amazon delivery services.
Yes, yeah, it's
for fruit and vegetables.
Amazon
and
Fresh.
Yeah. So I think that ecosystem, once you have physical distribution on ground, that makes all the difference.
The whole world's different. Amazon's been opening up massive centers, distribution centers, more than anybody would have normally have accounted for. Again, if you look at their current distribution system, they're keeping UPS, Federal Express, and a couple of independent distribution companies profitable. If you were to take Amazon out of UPS right now, UPS would be in a massive problem.
I'll give you an example that many people don't know. When new students arrive in the U.S., the international offices, Amazon sort of puts out these little pamphlets, buy the TV from us, and they sort of, say, well, hold on, no, I'll just go to the Sam's Club or the Walmart or whatever it is, down the road and buy it from them. And then they find out, well, hold on, I'm buying a 40-inch TV. How the heck am I going to take it home?
That's right.
I don't have a car. I don't have nothing right now. I'm just a new student or what have you. And so they say, we'll buy from Amazon. We'll deliver it to your house, and for the same price. And hey.
Easy move.
So the one final thing I want to say about this is Amazon Prime and what membership really means. We can go all the way back into U.S. history about membership, warehouse clubs, et cetera. They've always been a very powerful idea. If you were to go out on a Saturday morning and go to Costco throughout the United States, you're going to see a line probably around the block for people fueling up their cars and, buying their hot dogs for the month or whatever. And sometimes the savings is aggregate, not that much. I'm always fascinated by Costco members that fuel up. They'll drive 10 miles to get, a 2-cent savings on gas, and it pretty much blow it on the drive out there. But the reason people do this is what I call club mentality. Once you're part of a club and you're paying a membership mentality, you want to maximize its benefit. And everybody I know that is an Amazon Prime member pretty much finds that point where, boy, all my shipping's free from this point on. I've just covered my Prime, how many weeks before, in my wife's case, it was a couple of weeks before they covered what their Prime membership was versus what the shipping could have
Costco does a good job of it, right? They have the Costco card, and then when you consider, it's Saturday, I have to go shopping, right? You're like, do I go to the local store or do I go to Costco? And you're like, well, sure. I'm a member of Costco. I can have things that no one else can have. And, you make the trip. Make the voyage.
So this is a big part of Amazon Fire Phone, and I don't know how it's going to translate very, very long term, but getting a free Amazon Prime membership.
How long is this? How long has the phone been in the works? How long have they been thinking about this?
3 years.
3 years?
At least. Yeah, 3 years. And the technology behind it, the imaging technology is actually maybe longer. This is not trivial technology. Although it appears trivial, it is actually a major advancement in imaging recognition technology. And Amazon gave it a proper button on the phone. They actually said, hey, this is so important. You can press a button and get right to it.
Did they acquire anyone previously in the last couple of years that they used? Any technology? Or they have built this all internally and through?
This is all part of their own skunkworks, pretty much. They acquired technologists. They were definitely hiring away people who were experts at imaging. And everybody thought they were going to make a super camera. And nobody was thinking that they were really trying to on both sides of this, try to create, a really pleasing three-dimensional space to look into the screen. I got to tell you, looking at maps and items inside the screen and to sort of see it from either side by moving the phone or moving your head, it's interesting. And you could get used to it just like you and I, or all of us got used to Touch ID. I mean, I every time I go to my iPad, I'm pressing my finger down, hoping it opens up. I'm so used to Touch ID that it's built in.
It'll be big.
Let me ask you a question. One thing about the phone. What about apps?
Sorry?
Apps.
Apps are just essentially Android apps, and this is the problem with the ecosystem as it is, right? Everybody's tried to create that third ecosystem, and unfortunately, I think history will tell us that will never take place. Windows, Mac, and in technology, there's always going to be essentially two ecosystems, and so the apps are anything you can get in the Android store. But with the new SDKs and people trying to use Firefly to a great extent, I don't know how successful they're going to be. If I was a developer, I would definitely look at the SDKs. They're amazing. There's some interesting things you can do. And if you believe that Amazon is going to sell X number of SKUs, X number of units, just because they're Amazon, there could be some profitability of being an early player in this marketplace using the Firefly SDK. But so anything that you can possibly get under the Android store.
And how many phones do you think they'll sell, assuming that people will go for an upgrade? They'll have a choice between their Samsungs or the iPhones, what have you. What would prompt them to go for an Amazon phone,
I think it's just the fact that if you already have a mental and emotional relationship with Amazon and you are in that store and you're going to be swayed out of the Apple ecosystem into the Android ecosystem,
brings them.
It's a generic purchase, right? Are people really that brand in love with Samsung? No, they're not brand in love with Motorola. So they are brand in love with Amazon, or at least in a sense that they've had numerous positive relationships with the company.
It's interesting too because we have Google I/O right around the corner on Wednesday. Yeah. On Wednesday, where we'll see some, I'm sure, magic displayed on stage, which will be exciting. Brian, yes, are you going to that?
I believe I'm.
Or Faisal?
Potentially going to attend, but there are some conflicts.
I'll just be watching it.
Depends if Larry personally invites you.
Yeah, you got to get up there and give my
that'll
class.
be a fun episode. So transitioning a little bit, Brian.
Yeah, there's rumor that you were on some board yesterday discussing the future of Bitcoin. What happened?
Yeah, so the Los Angeles, they call it the Silicon Beach Festival. It was a panel discussing marketplaces. So we discussed the history of the marketplaces, what it takes to build a marketplace on the supply and demand side. But one of the interesting questions on this panel was how does Bitcoin or how does cryptocurrency affect marketplaces? And I think in my approach, or the answer to the question, I took a broader answer and said it's not as much marketplaces specifically, right? Because we're not dealing in microtransactions. I believe Fiverr and maybe some other online marketplaces are going to be the smallest transaction size. But with, say, Home Hero, Lyft, Uber, Postmates, some of the larger service-based marketplaces in person, cryptocurrency is not a huge factor. But where it really makes a big difference is in the small microtransactions, sub $1 online, where you can compensate someone for some Twitter answer they gave you, some Quora post that you're reading, or some Stack Overflow answer that literally saves you hours and hundreds of dollars. So I think this effect, once it hits mass market, you could say, will have a huge impact on people. Probably not as much in the marketplace sense. But Brian, before the show, we were talking a bit about Bitcoin, some new currencies. You were looking at mining. What do you think about Bitcoin now? Is it so they actually bought rights to a stadium, which is big, and getting really brand recognition? Are you still mining just as much as you were, say, in our first episode discussing Bitcoin?
Oh my gosh, I'm probably triple mining at this point. Yeah. The idea of mining is multifold. I mean, obviously you're actually becoming part of the network. You're securing the network, and I'm sort of always interested in the premises of some of the new coins. Then some massive failures. The idea of giving an entire country its own coin sounded like a great idea, and it failed miserably, in my view. And I was behind that. 100%. I helped mine some of the coins. We prospered in it. None of us really feel depressed as miners that we got behind a coin with a good premise. And there's some interesting ones. Like I'm pretty big in a coin called SaveCoin right now, which has got a 65% annual interest rate built in. And so
how does that work? So how can you guarantee that?
The owner of the coin, if you will, pre-mined, and I'm usually against a pre-mined coin because it gives the power and the profits to the guy that pre-mined it. Anybody can make a coin, right? If they understand the premise, right? And normally, most of us miners are very skeptical and saying, okay, you're going to wait for us to secure the network and you're going to dump all these coins on the market once it goes up. See, miners are not only securing the network, but in the early days, we're actually creating the currency and the market for the currency. Miners are creating a whole lot of value in the sense that the currency has no value until it's mined, and then it's mined. Who's got the coins? The miners. What do they do with it? Well, if they believe in it, they're going to hold a certain percentage back and then trade a certain percentage to the open market. And there's a very healthy market for a lot of new coins. But a lot of it is what some people term pump and dump. A coin will get, some initial traction from the early miners. The coins will be put into the market. The first generation of speculators will buy all those coins that they can get. And then it will pump up the volume of transactions, and all of a sudden, when it reaches a peak, everybody sells out, and then maybe the coin doesn't recover. A lot of coins actually do recover from the first episode, and I think we're going to expect that sort of behavior on almost every new coin. What SaveCoin is trying to do is trying to have miners and people who have the coin have an incentive to hold on to it. That's why it's SaveCoin. It's not designed necessarily to be a transactional coin, but a value holding device. And one of the preeminent motivations is an interest rate. So he pre-mined, this particular coin creator, pre-mined, I think, 65% of the coins. And what he's promising is a 65% interest rate on into the next 100 years in theory and mathematically. And so if you have a coin in a wallet, that wallet address will receive an annualized daily or weekly percentage of the 65% interest rate. Now, if the coin never goes anywhere and it has a sum total value of zero, so you got a lot more of zero-based coins. But if the coin does do well and people see it as a way to retain value, there's no place on the planet that is guaranteeing 65% interest year over year. So it's really a marketing thing. If enough people find out about it, and they put a certain percentage of wealth in it, it could be an amazing opportunity.
Faisal, are you in it? Are you on the bandwagon?
No, not on this. To me, it sounds like something like MLM or pyramid schemes.
Yeah.
Because I know that. No. With all due respect.
I got some Mary Kay to sell you guys. Come on.
With all due respect to
Herbalife?
Brian, but I'll tell you, I think I see a lot of people who are tech savvy and are sort of, also the con artists who are going to enter the game and say, well, this coin is this and this coin is this. If you read
no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
If you read the forums, they're creating these thousands of accounts and trying to jump the price up, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not buying that. I think I'll just stick to the the main currencies like Doge, like Bitcoin, Litecoin, et cetera. I'm not too gung-ho because adoption rate with even Bitcoin, I did a survey the other day and I asked all the people who I know who have Bitcoins, I said, what did you buy? And literally, I think 2 or 3 people said, well, we bought just some random stuff or paid for some stuff, but everyone is just holding on. The real transactors with the coins today are people in Argentina, people in Kenya, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, Uganda. No, these are the people who are actually have family or diaspora in the US or UK or what have you, and are transporting money. For example, Argentina right now has an FX control on foreign exchange and dollars and so forth. So they are actually transporting money through Bitcoin and using Bitcoin as a medium to do transactions or cross-border remittances. So these are real-life cases. Same thing is happening in Uganda, where the transaction price is something like, if you want to send across $50 or $30, you need $30 right now. You can't Western Union it possibly because the cost of Western Union is insane. And Bitcoin, so small entrepreneurs, who I would call social entrepreneurs, have propped up and say, well, I'll do $50 worth of Bitcoins for you. Here's my wallet, send it across, and families are doing this thing. So it's easy for a family sitting in Boston to send, to someone in Kampala, Uganda, some small amount. And it's happening, and it's happening in Argentina. It's happening in in quite a few economies. So that's the use case that I see right now. All this thing about having cards and coins and my Bitcoin card, and you can use it at all these POS locations. All the people that I'm talking to are more concerned about only two things, two lines of businesses. One is somehow providing a Bitcoin ATM to be able to buy Bitcoins. And two is cashing it out on a remittance networks in some beneficiary country. So these are the two cases that I'm seeing. The shopping element, I'd love for it to grow, but it just hasn't grown up that much.
There's no real motivating thing behind
That's exactly
it with the
right.
shopping. But there's other elements within all of these coins. I mean, as we speak today, the most wildly traded coin had a 218.58% boost, $57,000 in transactions, and it's a coin called Community Coin. It's a script-based coin. Now, if you were a miner, and by the way, the difficulty, the ease of getting these coins as a miner is relatively quick and easy. So if you were to get, let's say, 25 coins, now right now it's 3 zeros and a 3, 0.3 zeros and a 3 is the value of the coin. So let's just say you have a fairly medium grade mining script, let's call it 10 mega hash. You could probably obtain 35, 40 of those coins in a day easily. And it's a 218% increase. Now, if you held onto those coins and it continues to increase, and this chart looks like it's probably going to drop, it looks like your classic pump and dump, you could probably get a really reasonable return on your investment. Now, what are most of these miners going to convert into?
No, but you miss out one thing, that reasonable return of investment may not be a return on investment in its truest sense when you look at the utility bill that you're paying for.
No. Whenever I do these calculations, utility is always a part of it. And we try to use, as miners, worst case utility scenarios. But what'll happen is, this is a very important aspect of mining that most people don't realize, is that we mine these third level, fourth level coins to get to Bitcoin and Litecoin, because the difficulty in Bitcoin and Litecoin has gotten so high. And you have these mining rigs. You use these secondary coins, which, for better or for worse, has a market. There are traders. There are people that are buying it. I can go to exchanges right now, and I can take Community Coin and dump it at market price. Now, if it costs me a fraction of what I'm being paid for, and I convert that into Bitcoin, and now Bitcoin starts rising up, we've now maximized our value. So some of the coins as miners select to mine may or may not be that we believe in the coin intrinsically in and of itself. It may or may not even be that we believe the coin is going to be used in a transactional basis. We do believe that some of these coins are going to exist for whatever reason on its own into the future, and some of them are not going to exist. But at the end of the day, like anything that has a value established to it, it's the market. It's a meeting of the buyer and the seller. If there's a buyer that's willing to pay, X, and you paid, and it costs you Y to mine, do you really philosophically decide whether or not you sit there with that coin and say, wow, will this ever be used? Most of the miners I know, they're pragmatic. And they are philosophical, but they are mostly pragmatic. And they say, listen, last night I mined 4,000, coffee coin. And I put it out in the market and I got $16 for it. But I didn't get $16. I got $16 worth of Bitcoin. And now Bitcoin just rose. And now my $16 is worth $21. So you got $21 of Bitcoin on a Litecoin-based script miner, which, if you were just mining Litecoin, you probably would have gotten maybe $2 or $3. So you can see the logic behind why some of these miners go in this direction.
It's almost like, harmonics, you're going off the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth and so forth. But what's your take on the 30,000 Bitcoins that the U.S. Marshals are going to be auctioning off? And
this is going to be interesting. It's psychological.
My question to you would be, as a percentage value of the current market price, how much do you think is the maximum price they'll get?
Brad, before you delve in, just explain this to people who don't know. The 30,000 Bitcoins is going to be given away?
No, the U.S. Marshals, whatever property they confiscate, they auction it off to the highest bidder. That's part and parcel of the U.S. government whenever they seize something from a criminal intent. So the 30,000 coins they have from the Silk Road, and they have two.
I see,
so
right.
this is the first one. So the first auction is 30,000 that the U.S. Marshals hold on to. The minimum bid requirement is 200,000. Is you got to pay to $200,000 just to join that thing. 30,000 at current market rate is about 18 million. So my question is, what percentage value do you think they'll go for? Will it be for 50% that they'll get it, for maybe higher?
Well, the Marshals gave us a really nice little gift. They released the email addresses of everybody who's bidding or potentially going to bid. And if you look at the list, it's quite interesting. Most of the top line bidders are hedge funds and investment companies. So these are your Wall Street analyst types that are looking at this, along with a whole list of others, Second Market, et cetera. Some people are quite embarrassed by the release of this data, which they should be.
That sounds silly.
Well, a simple BCC versus CC.
Is that what happened? It was an accident?
Yes, it was a BCC versus CC thing. What's that B mean? Okay, what's that C mean?
Oh my God, that's terrible.
So obviously everybody knew everybody on the list. This is going to game the bidding to some extent. My view is it's going to get probably close to 70 to 80% of market value. The bidding's going to be very heavy. Some of the players in there are arbitrage players who make money on millions of a Bitcoin transactional differences every couple of seconds of a day. So I don't believe you're going to see the big discount. Now, what it does, though, psychologically, it's minute.
And what about the sell-off? Because I assume that there's going to be some sort of a slippage in price. Even if a 10% slip in price,
sure,
your 20% has just gone to 10.
There's a lot of short selling taking place right now on this whole. And when it was announced that the bidding was going to take place, Bitcoin dropped below its $600 ground floor. It's been really ground floored at 600 for a while, and dipped into the high fives. It's pretty much back up. 590s. So we're at a fairly stable clip from the early fallback. But what it's going to mean is you're going to have people psychologically believe that that the market is going to somehow lose a lot of value because all of a sudden there's a great deal of supply. But you have to understand that people buying the Bitcoin are not ones that are going to dump it into market. These are people that are going to be long-term players pretty much. So how does that affect the market? Well, if it was stocks, it would probably take a mild dip for a couple of days and just go on because we won't see the results of sales, people dumping in the market. With Bitcoin, it can go on for days, weeks, and months because, even though last night $10 million was traded on Bitcoin, that's still a minutely small amount of money.
It really is.
Really look at it. It really is.
I don't even know if that would get picked up on TechCrunch anymore.
No, it's like nothing. Yeah. But we're talking about a days and a half volume or more that's going to be sold in one day. What is that going to do to the price of Bitcoin? I don't know. I think the money is on the idea it's going to take a dip of between 12 and 25%. But it very well could take a move up because if the winning bidder says, hey, I won and I'm not moving, I believe in Bitcoin, that could actually wind up creating a rise.
if you look at the deposit that they'll get on their dollars, anything more than 5% is a win,
Sure.
And if they're borrowing this money even for 5 or 7 or 8%, it's still a win, provided you get a 10% gain. And I think a 10% gain they'll probably get
easily. So really, the strategy it would be if I was the winner, I would be out there trumping the fact that I bought all of this Bitcoin because I believe in Bitcoin and we're going to the moon essentially, and then take the ride up. And realistically, that will probably wind up getting more news because the traditional news agencies are all over this. That and the 51% hack, which, this idea that one mining group can get 51% of the control over the mining operations or the confirmation of transactions. Let's call it that to make it easier to understand what this means. And that created a little bit of price instability over the last few weeks because a mining operation, these are mining pools where we miners connect together and collectively go after solving the algorithmic complexity to get to 25 Bitcoins. And so what happens is, these mining pools are constructed in a way where, you might get a better deal as a miner. You might get a better percentage because the more miners in a pool, the more higher the likelihood is that you're going to get a block and you're going to get 25 Bitcoins at $500, $600 today. That's a substantial amount of money every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes or so. It's a lot of money. CXIO, they're essentially a trading platform, but they're also a mining operation, a mining pool. The reason why people have been attracted to them is they take no mining percentages. As a pool, they make nothing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful nonprofit.
Yeah, so here's the thing. They're also a trading platform, so why not advertise this ability for you to trade your Bitcoin after you've mined it? And that's why it's been so successful for them. And so now they're at 48 to 50%. So the theory has always been, since the original Bitcoin paper, is that you want to keep mining operations as diversified as possible so that one could not get 51%. Now, owning 51% is not the magic number, by the way. You can have 38%. And all we're saying is that in theory, one could double spend a Bitcoin or fork the Bitcoin blockchain to allow somebody else's coins not to be rendered valuable.
All right, guys, I think we're going to cut it there. Brian, love the insight as always. Tremendously valuable. Faisal, brilliant as always. Talk to you later, guys.
I say yo to you guys.
Yo.
Yo.
While we still can.
Next week.
You take care.
Next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.